I've heard you say that the first person to live to be 150, you believe has already been born.
I think it's possible.
Is that you, David?
I'm happy. I said that. I'm happy to put some money on it. Right. But as a scientist, nothing is certain in the future, right? There's no proof that that's going to happen. But I think there's a good chance that it's going to happen. Even if there's no breakthroughs, 50% of children born today will make it to 100. That's just mathematics. That's the trend that we've been on as a species.
Okay, so that's a big claim. Not people might live a bit longer, but we're talking the first person to reach 150 may already be walking around somewhere. And roughly half the kids born today could make it to 100. So is Sinclair genuinely onto something? Or has he just got very comfortable making clickbait? Because here's the thing. Once you actually understand how he thinks aging works, the claims start to make a lot more sense. You might still disagree with them, but they stop sounding like science fiction. So that's what I want to do today. Walk you through the actual argument, not just the sound bites, not the clickbait, but the actual science. To be fair to the man, he usually adds a qualifier that tends to get dropped when the clips go viral. So he frames this as a scientist making a probabilistic call, not a guarantee. More like if current trends hold and if the science keeps moving forwards, much longer lives become genuinely plausible. Now that already sounds less wild, doesn't it? Now here's where it gets interesting though. The mainstream picture of aging for a long time has basically been things break down. DNA gets damaged, wear and tear, oxidative stress. The body is just slowly falling apart. Now, Sinclair isn't saying that's wrong entirely, but he does push back on it being the entire story. His argument is that the bigger issue might not be damage to the DNA itself. It might be a loss of the information that tells your cells how to read the DNA correctly in the first place. That's basically what he calls his information theory of aging, and it's the foundation for pretty much everything else he talks about. So what is this information we're supposedly losing, and why does he think some of it might be recoverable? So there's this analogy that Sinclair uses a lot, and to be fair to him, it's actually a pretty good one. See, think of your DNA like the songs on a CD. The genome, actual genetic code, is the music, and it's all on there on the disk. But your cells also need something that tells them how to read that music. Which genes to turn on, which to keep off, how a liver cell should behave versus, say, a brain cell. And that layer of instruction is called the epigenome. So here's his idea. As we age, the code itself might be mostly fine, but the reading system gets noisy, scratchy, like your favorite CD's been left out on the kitchen counter. Now, if you're as old as me, then you know exactly what I'm talking about there. And for the kids watching this, I probably completely lost you. So the songs are still there. The player just keeps skipping. In his model, aging is partly about cells starting to read the wrong genes at the wrong time, slowly losing their identity, their sense of what they're supposed to be doing. And why does that matter? Because if aging is mostly hard damage, irreversible, structural, reversing it all sounds pretty far-fetched. But if it's more like corrupted software, in theory, you might be able to reset some of it. And that's not proof of anything yet, of course, but it's why Sinclair talks about aging in a fundamentally different way to the old wear and tear model. And it's why some serious scientists are starting to pay attention to what he's saying. So what actually controls this system? What does Sinclair think flips the body into repair mode? Okay, so there are three things that come up a lot when Sinclair talks about the biology: mTOR, MPK, and sirtuins. Now, don't worry, I'm going to make this quick and not go too deep into the science of these, but mTOR is basically your body's growth system. When food's plentiful, energy's high, the mTOR is up and the body is building. That's useful. You need it for growth. But Sinclair's argument, which is also shared by a lot of other longevity researchers, is that if you're always in that state, always eating, always stimulated, repair and maintenance kind of gets pushed to the back burner. Now, there's also AMPK, which is kind of the opposite switch. It tends to kick in when energy is low. The body is essentially saying, like, resources are tight right now, let's get efficient, let's adapt, let's fix things. Which is one reason exercise and metabolic stress get talked about so much in this space. Many of the benefits associated with fasting take advantage of this pathway too. Next, and finally, we come to sirtuins. Now, sirtuins are Sinclair's main obsession. They're proteins involved in stress responses, DNA repair signaling, and repairing the epigenome. He talks about them like part of the body's maintenance crew. And he talks a lot about NAD as a fuel that helps them to do their job. And on a side note, if you've ever heard of NAD plus supplements being pushed by biohackers or longevity experts online, and at this point, kind of who hasn't really, a big chunk of the reason that it's even a conversation is because of Sinclair's lab and his research. His research is a large part of why NAD went from an obscure molecule to something that people are injecting into their arms on YouTube. So, back to sirtuins. The simplified version of his argument is challenge the body in the right way through movement, through not constantly being in a fed, comfortable, low-stress state, and you activate the systems that help cells hold together for longer. That's not, therefore we're going to live to 50, but it is the biological logic behind why he thinks aging is more flexible than people assume. Okay, but ideas are one thing. What's the actual evidence that makes Sinclair confident enough to make such bold claims in public? So Sinclair's confidence comes from a few different places, and I'm going to break them down for you now. Answer. First, trend data. When he says half the children born today may reach 100, he actually calls that mathematics. And that part isn't just hype. Human lifespan has improved enormously. Clean water, vaccines, better heart disease treatments, less smoking. The trajectory is very real, so more centenarians is genuinely plausible. But, and this matters, more people reaching 100 is not the same as proving 130 or 150 becomes routine. That's a much bigger jump. The trend gets you so far, and then you need new biology. So second, the field itself. Longevity science is unrecognizable compared to 20 years ago. More researchers, more funding, better tools, AI accelerating all kinds of discoveries and drug discoveries and all sorts of other things. That part is clearly true, and it does matter. A bigger, fast moving field increases the chances of real, genuine breakthroughs. Third, and this is where Sinclair's strongest science sits, the animal work. His lab's most significant headline results are around partial reprogramming, specifically work on mouse eyes and optic nerves. So they use 3 genes, OCT4, SOX2, and KLS4, 3 of the so-called Yamanaka factors. But let's not get into all of that. And he did that to try and partially reset aged cells, not to turn them into stem cells, more like to remind them how they behaved when they were younger. And here's a bit that ties it all together, because this isn't just about interesting animal research sitting off to the side. This is Sinclair directly trying to prove his own theory. The OSK genes didn't repair DNA damage or add anything new to the cells. What they appeared to do was trigger a partial epigenetic reset. The methylation patterns, the reading instructions we talked about earlier, shifted back towards younger patterns. The cells didn't get a new code, they just started reading the old code more cleanly again. Remember what I said earlier about the CDs and the software. Now, this is exactly what the information theory of aging predicts should be possible. The music was still on the disc the whole time. Now, what they reported was striking. improved nerve regeneration, better retinal cell function, improved vision in aging and glaucoma models, and treated cells showed more youthful patterns of gene expression. So in plain terms, some aged cells appear to partially behave like younger cells again. Now, the really important caveat here is this does not mean full body age reversal in humans is just around the corner. Mouse eye results are not human lifespan results, but it does explain why scientists who used to roll their eyes at this stuff are now taking it much more seriously. Because it's not just theory, there's actual experimental biology and studies behind it. So if that's the strongest case for his optimism, what do the critics actually say he's getting wrong? Okay, so the criticism. And I think some of these are genuinely good. One, mice are just not people, obviously. A lot of the exciting longevity results are in yeast, worms, mice, cell cultures. All useful, but humans are far more complex. Much slower to study, and the graveyard of work amazingly in mice did basically nothing useful in humans is really a clear one. So critics want to see clear, reproducible evidence in actual humans before they get too excited. The second criticism, biomarkers aren't outcome. Clock can move, pathway can look better, a marker could improve, but does that reliably transfer over to fewer diseases, better function along the line? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But the gap between looks good on a test and what actually changes how someone ages is real, and the critics don't think it gets talked about enough. Criticism 3, lifespan versus health span. Some of the sharpest critics argue that the whole conversation is just too overly focused on maximum years, when what people actually want is to stay sharp, well, and independent for much longer. At the end of the day, 10 extra years in poor health is just not the dream anyone's actually signing up for. Criticism number 4, bold forecasts outpace the evidence. That gets attention, and maybe that even helps to attract funding, but critics say those predictions are still very speculative. Even if the underlying biology is genuinely interesting and showing promise. That tension, exciting science, uncertain timelines, is the honest place to land on this. So what can you actually do with any of this? Because I don't want this to just end with fascinating. So here's the practical bit. And honestly, it's less exciting than that 150-year headline. Even if you're skeptical of everything Sinclair says, the habits he talks about map onto the same system. So there's something useful here regarding. So metabolic health first. The always fed, always stimulated thing is real. Just eat in a way that keeps blood sugar levels more stable. Build meals around protein and fiber, and keep your waistline somewhere reasonable over time. Use movement as a signal, not just exercise. This is the reframe I find most useful. You're not just burning calories when you train. You're sending instructions to yourselves. You need to walk daily, do some strength work, add some harder cardiovascular effort a couple of times a week if you're up for it. Those are the signals that matter most. Take sleep seriously. Poor sleep messes with repair, hormones, blood sugar, and inflammation simultaneously. If you're doing everything else right and then sleeping badly, you're really undermining most of it. It's really not optional. It's a non-negotiable. And be honest about what's proven versus interesting. Some of the compounds people talk about in this space are promising. Most of them are still in the promising stage though. The basics, movement, food quality, sleep, not being chronically stressed, still do most of the work, the heavy lift. Even in Sinclair's framework, if you strip it back, it still points here. Your body responds to the signals you give it every single day. So is Sinclair right? More people reaching 100? Yeah, it's genuinely plausible. The trend is very real. Routine to 110, 120 maybe? Possible. It's not proven. 150? That's still a bold bet, but it's an interesting one. And there are reasons why that might be plausible. So what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. But I think his most important idea might not actually be the number at all. It's the underlying shift in how we think about aging. not as something that just happens to you, inevitable things, but as something that might be more changeable than we were ever taught. And if that's true, the goal isn't just to chase more years, it's to give your body better information, better signal for as long as you can. Now that's probably worth something, whatever the number turns out to be.